there is going to be such a statement made across this nation in November. A statement that in fact recognizes that there are good policies and there are bad policies. They have consequences. I'll tell you, if you don't believe that, just look back at Virginia. Look back at Virginia. Because a year ago, all the DC pundits said Virginia was beyond reach. The suburbs were lost for a generation. Virginia was not purple, Virginia was blue. That in fact the liberal machine had been successful in cornering the market in the cradle of democracy, the Commonwealth of Virginia. But those pundits forgot to do one thing: talk to the voters. Because the voters of Virginia made a different statement, and that statement was heard around the nation. Heard around the nation. Go on a walk with me for a minute. Let's go back in time. Because the pundits had one thing, right? Virginia was blue. Virginia was dark blue. And life in Virginia had gotten pretty bleak. During the pandemic, Virginia was shut, locked tight. Businesses in Bristol, Virginia were closed and the proprietors sat in empty stores. When right across the street in Bristol, Tennessee, they were open and thriving. We saw Virginia workers sent home and, oh, by the way, paid to be there. We watched Virginia small businesses close at record numbers. We saw people leaving the Commonwealth at record pace. We watched our schools shut and tell students, you can't come. Friends, schools told parents, you have no say. Well, what happened, of course, was that parents now all of a sudden had a lens into their children's education they had never seen before. And they recognized that all of a sudden, the curriculum that was supposed to be about critical math and critical science was teaching politics. Was in fact teaching our children to view everything through a lens of race and to judge one another. And parents stood up and said, no. We also saw a Commonwealth of Virginia hit a 20-year high in murder rate. Why? Because our law enforcement heroes were demeaned and demoralized. And the next thing you know, murder rates go up. And our prosecutors, who were backed by George Soros, said, we are not going to enforce the laws we don't like. Friends, the cradle of democracy had moved a long way. But Virginians stood up and said, no, not here, no more. And it wasn't just Republicans. It was Democrats. It was independents. It was the Latino vote. It was the black vote. It was mothers. It was women. It was law enforcement. It was farmers. We won votes from people who had never voted for a Republican in their lives. And all of a sudden, the spirit of Virginia, the spirit that breathed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness into our nation was alive and well. That's what happened last year. I had the amazing privilege of being hired by 8.6 million Virginians to go to work on their behalf. You see, you're incredibly fortunate in Nebraska because you have great Republican elected public servants. At the school boards, which by the way is the most important job in our nation right now, in your legislature, your governor, people you send to Congress. Friends, you need to recognize that it can all change like that because it did in Virginia. It changed like that. And so, Nebraskans, you have two jobs, two really important ones. First, you've got to protect Nebraska. You have got to make sure, as the governor just said, to elect Republicans. Because elections have consequences. But second of all, you've got to go to work to help us deliver the nation. You see, we have got to send Republicans into office all over the country. State legislatures, governor's offices, lieutenant governors, attorney generals, congressional representatives, senators. This is our moment. It's our moment because we have seen exactly what Joe Biden has been doing to our nation. It's not just that common sense has left the building. It's been replaced with a failed philosophical view that's ruining America. We all know it. We all know it. We've seen an attack on energy policy that took America from being energy independent to energy dependent, where we're begging Saudi Arabia to pump more oil as opposed to permitting the Keystone Pipeline, creating capital and encouraging production, and unleashing one of America's great resources. Instead of America being energy independent, we've watched the Biden administration try to snuff it out. We've watched the Biden administration go soft on Russia, and guess what? They are soft on China. 80% of our pharmaceutical feedstocks come from China. Vast components of our supply chain come from China. We have got to get U.S. manufacturing back to the U.S. I'm sorry, Governor Ricketts, and I'm sorry, future Governor Pillen. It's coming to Virginia. Because we're going to work every day to get it there. Friends, we have got to stop conceding and start competing and start winning. This is where our future is. We, in fact, see an economy, a Biden economy that is a house built on sand. An economy that violates every common sense economic principle that we know. Runaway spending, relentless government support, regulations that are putting businesses out of business. It's time to recognize that that model failed, and we have to go to work to stop it. And finally, our communities continue to be under assault. We see it every day. We see it every day. The governor talked about the fentanyl crisis. Let me tell you, what's happening at the border is unconscionable. It's unconscionable. And it has all been created by Joe Biden. By an administration that doesn't understand that an open border that, in fact, invites people to take, as the UN has recently determined, the single most dangerous trip in the world. It's just fundamentally wrong. Friends, we have work to do. So it's time that we collectively say, enough. You all know a lot about freedom and liberty. I'm so inspired by being here with you this morning and listening to the speeches of how you're standing up for what's right, the values that we share across this nation that are not Republican values, they're American values. Humbly, I'd say we in Virginia know a little bit about liberty. Just a bit. You know, George Washington led us to independence. Thomas Jefferson wrote the most immortal words written by man. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Patrick Henry stood up and said, "Give me liberty or give me death." The framer of our Constitution, James Madison, said that we must have three balanced segments of government. And the most important was that our Bill of Rights was championed and signed in the capital of Virginia, Richmond. A Bill of Rights that protects our freedom of religion, protects our freedom of speech, protects our right to keep and bear arms, protects the state's right against overreach from the federal government. Friends, I can't go any further with stopping and taking a moment to thank our Lord for our Supreme Court. The Supreme Court that rightfully returned the responsibility to make decisions on behalf of those that have elected us, a responsibility to protect the unborn. What a moment. The spirit of Virginia was alive and well then, and it breathed life into our nation. Let me tell you, from what I see here today, that spirit of our nation is alive and well in Nebraska. So here's the work ahead of us. The governor laid it out. Let me tell you what we did in Virginia. We had 5,000 people volunteer to work the polls. Election officials, poll watchers, handing out flyers. 5,000. And you know what they did? They established a sense of confidence in the election process. Amazing. There were more red signs in Virginia than have ever been seen before. We had record turnout. We, in fact, had more people volunteering than anyone could ever remember. That's what it takes. This isn't a process that you can leave to chance. You make elections happen. And so now it's on you. It's on you this year to volunteer and work at your local polling positions. Oh, by the way, put a red sign on every street corner. Everyone. Bumper stickers on cars. Wear t-shirts. The winning team is the winning team. We need to be proud of it. Folks, this is our chance to stand up and lead the way. And oh, by the way, you might as well go ahead and buy a red vest. We do this together. This isn't something that a few people go off and do, and then everyone else does one thing, show up and vote. You do it together. Yes, Governor, you get 10 friends to come vote. You turn out the vote. Friends, what's happening is this red wave that found its headwaters last year in the Commonwealth of Virginia, is cresting across America's heartland. And I'll tell you, it's going to come crashing down on Nancy Pelosi's California. You can feel it. You can feel the spirit of the nation alive. It's extraordinary to see it happen. Joe Biden doesn't want it to happen. And guess what? Americans are going to say no. The left liberal politics of big government want to try to define a different path. We know it's wrong. We know that the Republican Party stands for American values. We know that the Republican Party stands for values of small government, of low taxes, of low inflation, and oh, by the way, of energy independence. We know that the Republican Party stands for schools that in fact educate our children and have high expectations, not low ones. The Republican Party stands for parents because guess what? Parents matter. Right. They matter in our children's lives. We stand for safe communities. Communities where we value and support law enforcement, not demean and demoralize them. We can make our communities safe. The Republican Party stands for an economy that is rested on fundamentals of having a competitive edge of American-made products. An economy that creates opportunities for all. We, in fact, are the land of opportunity. We just have to go build it. And the Republican Party stands for a government that recognizes that we work for you. And we're going to stop telling you what to do. It's simple. The best jobs, the best schools, the safest communities, a government that works, and oh, by the way, a government that recognizes the Constitution is to be defended, not assaulted. The Republican Party stands for an America that leads, and it's time for us to start leading again. Friends, this is right here in front of us. It's right here in front of us. We can do this. We're bonded together by a spirit of liberty. Bonded. Not a loose relationship. And it's time that we lock arms and recognize that this melting pot of this great America is brought together by a determination, by a patriotism, by a recognition that our best days are in front of us, not behind us. And together, we can do this with faith in God, with faith in our families, and an unwavering determination to win this fall and make America what we all know she must be, that shining city on a hill. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to go to work. It's time to get it done. And so let's go to work together. God bless you all.